Your day sounds better with your music and your station playing on the background.
We've got classic gospel, the brand new gospel, and everything in between. And here's brand new music to bless your day.
This is New Season Gospel FM.
Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together and welcome Christopher Lane!
Jesus is my deliverer. I know that Jesus is my deliverer. Jesus is my deliverer. I know He delivered me. How do you know He delivered? How do you know He delivered? How do you know He delivered? I know He delivered me. Jesus is my deliverer. Jesus is my deliverer. Jesus is my deliverer. I know He delivered me. How do you know He delivered? How do you know He delivered? How do you know He delivered? I know He delivered me. Jesus is my deliverer. Jesus is my deliverer. Jesus is my deliverer. I know He delivered me. How do you know He delivered? How do you know He delivered? How do you know He delivered? I know He delivered me. Jesus is my deliverer. Jesus is my deliverer. Jesus is my deliverer. I know He delivered me. How do you know He delivered? How do you know He delivered? How do you know He delivered? I know He delivered me. Pain in me head He delivered. Pain in me head He delivered. Pain in me head He delivered. I know He delivered me. Pain in me neck He delivered. Pain in me neck He delivered. Pain in me neck He delivered. I know He delivered me. Pain in me chest He delivered. Pain in me chest He delivered. Pain in me chest He delivered. I know He delivered me. Pain in me hip He delivered. Pain in me hip He delivered. Pain in me hip He delivered. I know He delivered me. Pain in me foot He delivered. Pain in me foot He delivered. Pain in me foot He delivered. I know He delivered me. Pain in me hand He delivered. Pain in me hand He delivered. Pain in me hand He delivered. I know He delivered me. Jesus is my deliverer. Jesus is my deliverer. Jesus is my deliverer. I know He delivered me. How do you know He delivered? How do you know He delivered? How do you know He delivered? I know He delivered me. Jesus is my provider. Jesus is my provider. Jesus is my provider. Jesus is my provider. I know He provides for me. How do you know He provides? How do you know He provides? How do you know He provides? I know He provides for provider. Jesus is my provider. Jesus is my provider. I know He provides for me. How do you know He provides? How do you know He provides? How do you know He provides? I know He provides for me. Jesus is my provider.
Hi, this is Nana. Join me every Monday at 7 p.m. for Faith Matters. Faith Matters is where we reflect and share on our daily Christian walk. I look forward to sharing with you on Mondays at 7 p.m. God bless.
Listen to news.
The dawn of a new era.
The dawn of a new age.
Future without limits.
Countless boundaries. A future
Where everything is possible.
without limits. Full of love and wonder. So, explore, create, revoke your limits. Exceed your potential. The future is here.
New Season Worship Center, located at 4660 North University Drive. Welcome to a brighter future.
When Jesus says yes, nobody can say no. When Jesus says yes, nobody
Good
can
evening,
say
good
no.
evening.
It is time for Yes with Yesse. Please welcome your host,
Yay!
Yesenia Leva.
Thank you. Welcome. I love it. I absolutely love it. Good evening. Happy Thursday to everybody there on 89.1 and here on Facebook on Musings and Gospel FM. Good evening. Thank you for joining. I love hearing that Yes with Yesse jingle. And so sometimes, I don't get my technology right and I can't hear it, but I heard it. So it's working. It's awesome. It's amazing. And you guys are there, which is even better, guys. I'm excited. Life is good. Life is challenging, but it's good. And if it wasn't challenging, then what are we here for, right? What are we here for if we don't have a little bit of challenge and something exciting to face every single day, right? So it's exciting, guys. Welcome everybody. Thank you for being there. Thank you, my other half, for being there. Sister Mina, Sister Salma. Thank you. And guys, as you're joining, come on in, like and share with your communities as well as we get started. And so if you haven't done so already, please follow Yes with Yesse on Facebook. It is our Facebook group where we can connect and find information, resources, and different things that we can relate to and receive information that can help in our independence, in our knowledge of what is out there in our community, especially with the times that we are living right now with COVID-19. And so join in. It's Yes with Yesse Facebook group, and a lot of awesome things coming our way pretty soon. So you guys don't want to miss it. You want to stay tuned. You want to stay connected and educated on all that is to come. So 2021, here we go. 2021. It's a year to do so much more than we have done so far. And so it's going to be an amazing year. And so January is the beginning of the year, is the start to new things, the start to new projects, the start to so many things. But the really interesting thing that I learned very recently is that January starts off a year of Braille World Day, or what it is really is World Braille Day, to be politically correct. And the actual day is January 4th. It's January 4th, but we raise awareness and celebrate that day, if you will, for the entire month. And what it is if we're not familiar with the term Braille, it's actually a tactile representation of alphabetic and numerical symbols in using 6 dots. So we have a whole alphabet of how many letters? And in this Braille, they only use 6 dots to symbolize the representation of letters and numbers. And so with those 6 dots of Braille, you formulate numbers and letters, and then you formulate small fractions of sentences. And that is used by individuals that are blind, whether they are completely blind or partially blind. So that was a fun fact. See, learn something new every day, right? So that's a fun fact. And that's something that is used in a lot of public places like museums, very artistic places, not so much our common day-to-day use places, unfortunately, like your menus or your restaurants, your educational system. We're not there yet. But those are the places that we need to get. And I remember a couple years ago, when I was doing some advocacy, we advocated for this to take place in the Fort Lauderdale Science Museum. And we were able to do it, actually. It took a long time. It was through the Partners in Policymaking and Leadership Program. And so we were able to get Braille to be installed or to be designed within the signs that are available in each description next to an art piece or a statue or anything like that. And so that was a really cool accomplishment within the community to have individuals that are blind have access to Braille in the Science Museum. And so that was really cool. And so Braille Day came about in 2019, and it was to create awareness on its importance as a means of communication. And so as a means of communication in the full realization of the human rights of the blind and partially sighted people. So this is 2 different things, blind and partially sighted. So it goes deeper and deeper than that. And so it celebrates January 4th celebrates the birthday of Louis Braille, who is accredited with inventing the Braille language all in itself. And so it's cool because, you have your English language, Spanish, and all the different languages, but we don't realize that Braille is a language in itself for individuals with that particular disability. So that's interesting to know. And so this gentleman is accredited with inventing the Braille language. And of course, it helps those who are blind to read and write. And he actually became blind himself at age 3. So it's interesting how when we encounter these situations and when we live through something, we become that more passionate and that much more able and that much more resourceful to create things that are not only going to help us in our difficulties or deficiencies, but also help other people. And I think that's really awesome. That is really awesome when it comes to learning the Braille, the Braille, the community of those that use the Braille language. And to be honest, as much as I have learned, I didn't know Braille was a language in itself. So that's really interesting to learn. I learned something new. And so what happens is, it unfortunately is not very accessible to individuals that are blind or visually impaired in some way. And it's really, really, really expensive. Really expensive. So unfortunately, it's not very accessible. However, there are agencies and institutions that can help, individuals that are in need of these things obtain them, or at least learn about it and learn the process of what needs to be done in order to obtain this accommodation. And that's exactly what it is. Even though it is a language like the American language and it's not fully accessible to individuals with disabilities that need it, it is an accommodation, a reasonable accommodation according to the Americans with Disabilities Acts of 1990 for individuals that need this language and this service to obtain it. Good evening, Sister Jasmine. How are you? Always great to see you. Great to see all of you guys, actually. It's awesome. So thank you for being there, guys. And so what happens is, we've talked so much within the past couple, I want to say weeks, but in reality, in the past couple months, we've talked so much about the COVID-19 situation and everything that's going on in our community and isolation. And, you guys always hear me talking about not doing life alone and how important community is and all of that. But can you imagine being somebody that is blind? Like, we're talking about this particular accommodation for those that are blind, and some have multiple disabilities, meaning they are blind, and they might be hard of hearing. They might be so many things that basically makes them have multiple disabilities. I was going to use another word, but to be politically correct, multiple disabilities. And so can you imagine them being home alone, living on their own, not having a caregiver, not having an aide, not having, close family, not being able to see them because of COVID-19, and you're blind. And you might not have access to Braille. You might not have access to a service dog. So what do you do? What do you do when you can't watch the news, or, that information in regards to what's going on in the world right now is not easily accessible to you? And I remember when COVID first started, when we first got into the situation back in March, so it was probably by April that a friend of mine and I were able to advocate on behalf of individuals with disabilities and COVID-19 to say, okay, where are the accommodations? How is this information being provided to individuals that can't leave their home? Just like now, it's kind of like, okay, we have the vaccine, but how are people with disabilities or the elderly or anybody that's not able to leave their house, how are they going to obtain this vaccine should they decide to be vaccinated? And that's one of the biggest things right now. And so, I remember when we were advocating for this, the topic of issues of independence and isolations comes in, especially for those that rely on the use of such communication and their needs to access information. So what do you do? How do we advocate for this? What are we saying to the people that can make a difference, that can, fulfill the need in this? And so when we think about it is, like I said, there's the isolation, you're on your own, you don't have easy access to this information. And so we really need to come together and realize that it is only by our voice and our advocating, and not so much us as individuals with disabilities or differences or those needs advocating, but everybody in the community, whether you have this need or not, whether you have a disability or not, understand that these are accommodations that are useful and everybody is in need of them. Out of sight, out of mind type of thing. We can't be out of sight, out of mind when we're all living a very similar situation due to the pandemic. So as it pertains to the issue of independence and isolation, especially for those that rely on the use of these technologies, communicating their needs and access of information, the question becomes, how can we produce information in accessible format? How can we produce information in accessible format? One of the things that we were advocating for with a local representative was sign language. Yes, you provide sign language interpretation in the news when it pertains to important information, most of the time, not all the time. However, what if somebody can't read that or can't interpret that sign language? Where's the subtitles? Where's the actual sign language interpreter so that the individual can actually see the signs being made? And after that moment that we were advocating for this particular accommodation is when we would continue or begin to see our mayor of Broward County, do his presentation, do his public speech with an interpreter next to him. And then I remember that sometimes we wouldn't see the interpreter, and it wasn't because the interpreter wasn't available, but it was now because the news station, their cameraman, was not including the interpreter with the mayor. And I remember calling the station. And I'm like, hey, I'm watching you guys, and it's amazing that you guys have the interpretation available. However, if the cameraman doesn't include the interpreter, in the camera by the mayor or whomever is speaking at that moment, then it's really useless or pointless to even have an interpreter, right? And so from that point on, I remember making that request, and they fixed it at that moment. But that's something that we still have to work on, and we still have to educate, because it can never be just one person. It cannot be just one person advocating and educating and being persistent in that sense. It has to be it really does take a community of people to make things like this happen. It really, really does. Hi, James. How are you? Hi, Miss Brenda. Good to see you. And so that's really what it takes, guys. It's really a community to advocate on so many things. So what we need to kind of see how we can focus on is producing information in accessible format. Media, news description. The media, everybody turns to the media for information, for resources, for updates. How are we making the media, or how can we make the media more accessible to all people of all different needs? And including language needs, language differences. Where we live in a very diverse community, in a very diverse country. How are we making the local news more accessible to different languages? Are we? So it definitely does not only pertain to the world of accommodations when it comes to disability or, all these different things. And so I really think that we have to advocate, in some way, to how do we make this information accessible and readily available to all people through sign language, Braille. Braille should be available like a newspaper is available. Yeah, but granted, it's not the same in numbers, but it should be the same. All the agencies that service individuals with disabilities should have the accommodation of Braille. Legally, it is an accommodation under the ADA, under the 504. The method of communication for all people and parents as well in the education system. And so our leaders are the ones that need to advocate more and see how this can become readily available to all of our people. News media description, you don't really see it. Plain and simple, you don't really see media description unless it's in the top level, that it's mandated. But on a local level, you definitely don't see it. And so I definitely encourage you guys, everybody out there listening and watching, self-advocates like myself, those of you that work or are around people with differences at all in any way whatsoever, let's advocate on this. Because there's so much information out there, and there's so many people missing out on information to no fault of their own. And so often those individuals that need the information, they're just tired of advocating. They're just tired of being ignored. They're just tired of trying and nobody listening. And so as a society, it is time to listen. And it is that simple. As a society, it is time to listen. I remember when we were doing the voting situation, when we started, with the polls being open and all of that, the lack of accessibility in the voting sites is beyond me. And you know what their response was to me? Because I was there and I was advocating on one specific situation. They said, well, right now it's too late to change anything. And if more situations arise, we have a meeting gathering at the end of voting time, and whatever changes we need to make, we'll make for next time it's time to vote. That's not good enough. Later, tomorrow, next time is not good enough. The changes have to happen now. The accommodations have to happen now. The accessibility to information, to day-to-day life, to day-to-day news, to updates to COVID, to the vaccines, to resources, that access to that kind of information, the difference needs to happen now. Not 4 years from now, 5 years from now, or whatever it is. And so unfortunately, it's not going to happen until more people are advocating. So we have to stop feeling like we're not being listened to, like we're just being pushed aside. It's not to say that we're not. we unfortunately, that's the way it is. But if we decide as people with differences, disability, culture, whatever it is that the difference is, because it really doesn't matter. If we continue to feel less than, and we continue to allow ourselves to be isolated, and to be isolated by those very people doing the damage, we're not going to get anywhere. So who better than ourselves to be our own voice, our own power to make a difference? You know, you start making that difference possibly for yourself, and then you realize you're making such a difference for society and for so many others. And if you don't really care to make a difference for yourself, then don't do it for yourself. Do it for others. Do it for literally those thousands, millions of people living with these differences that we might not understand. We might not know anything about. Unless we ask questions, we become involved, we become educated on those differences, and only then will we be able to advocate for each other on different issues. And those different issues go from the higher ups. Those are my kids calling me now. Those issues go from way up to, you know, Tallahassee, to down to your local leaders, to your local people, you know, and those are our challenges and advocacy that never ends. It never ends, guys. It never ends. You got to go over and over and over. Yes. So if you guys read the comments, how can we make the media more accessible to people with disabilities? Yes, great question. Thank you. Yes, that's huge. That is huge. And trust me when I tell you that it's been I don't want to say a battle, because I don't see it as a battle when it's something that I love to do so much. I see it as it is challenging, but it's a challenge that I've been working on for so long. Like, how do we get in media? How do we, make media more accessible to individuals with disabilities? You know, that was my primary reason for starting Fun Inclusion, for, getting in these interviews that I've had the opportunity to get into. And so some people listen, some people don't. And if they don't listen, keep it moving. It is that simple. Just keep it moving, guys. Keep it moving. So definitely more advocacy is needed, guys. And so, remember, produce information in accessible format, media news descriptions. Without this accessibility and this accessible format, so many are at such a high risk. Is scary, higher risk than we already are, because as people with disabilities, we're already high risk, and the elderly, so we kind of fall into the same category there. So we definitely have to be mindful of that. And so without this accessible format, for so many facing high risk of contamination due to the lack of the guidelines, the procedures, it is that simple. The 6 feet apart, the 6 feet distance, the staying away from one another. It could be so simple, things that are needed everywhere in stores and things like that, that if somebody happens to be out that can't see, or that has very little vision, they don't know. And we cannot be under the assumption that just because you have these differences, you don't leave your house, or just because you have these differences, then you must have a companion, or you must have somebody with you. Not necessarily, because so many get denied the simple, or what seems to be the simple accommodations and services that are so needed, whether it be due to ignorance, which is the big one, or lack of funding. But so many do not have the accommodations, the caregivers, and the assistance that they need. And so because they don't have it, let's have them stay home, or become even more vulnerable, because as a society, we can't get it together. It's kind of sad, especially living in the United States. So a lot of advocacy needs to be done, guys. A lot. And it's only January 14th. We're halfway through January already. And with that, I want to, more advocacy is definitely necessary. And so with that, guys, I want to give you some information. I will be participating on January 31st. I'm excited because it's kind of like my first, this is my first kind of event like this, if you will. Even though I've done very, different kind of events and activities that I've had the opportunity to speak at. And so, ladies, this is for you. Gentlemen, we'll get back to you later. But ladies, this is for you. You guys are awesome. It's called the Mix, Mingle, and Pray Up Year of Boldness. Isn't that awesome? I'm gonna read that again. Mix, Mingle, and Pray Up Year of Boldness. January 30th at 3 p.m. And it is in collaboration with We Life on Power and Miss Shirley Tolliver. Shout out to Shirley. And so it's going to feature different guests. It's going to feature yours truly and myself as a panelist as well. And we're going to be just interviewed and ask different questions and have discussions on what does boldness mean, on what we are doing in 2021 to be bold and to let people know our place and our space and our purpose here on earth. And so it is going to be a virtual pray up event. You have to register. You have to register in order to watch and be a part of it. So I already posted it on all of my social media platforms. However, I will go ahead and post it again so that you guys can see it and register, guys. It is a free event, free. Just go ahead and check out Life on Power on Facebook and Instagram, and you guys can register from there. And so it's going to feature different speakers, pastors, panelists, guest speakers. I will be on there as well as a guest speaker. And so it's going to be awesome. It's going to get the perspective of how we are living life and going through this season in our lives as women, and how our spirituality and our belief in God is helping us. To move forward. And I like to say how it's helping us to keep it moving. Keep it moving, people. Keep it moving. It's all we can do, right? So thank you guys for joining. I will definitely repost that flyer again for January 30th on our Facebook. So check out Just with Jesse and subscribe, guys. Yes with Yesse on Facebook. And don't forget to check us out on YouTube. I think we are up to 40 on YouTube and we need 100. We need 100. So James and Brenda and Brother Barry, all of you guys better be registered on our YouTube channel, which is New Season Gospel FM all together. New Season Gospel FM all together. That way you will never miss a beat. You'll never miss another broadcast ever. And all the awesome things that we have coming up. So don't miss it, guys. Don't miss it. We are out of time, but I thank you for being there and listening. And I hope that it was interesting, valuable information that you can share along. If it's something that you can't use, maybe somebody you know can use that information. You never know. Life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. You don't have to go there. So thank you. Don't forget, tomorrow is Friday, everyone's favorite day. And join us first thing in the morning, 8 a.m. with Pastor Steve and Minister Brown. And then on Monday with Faith Matters with Mina at 7 p.m. Don't miss it, guys. Like and share, and invite, because that is the only way we will continue to grow. Thank you again. Hope you guys enjoyed. And if you have any questions, comments, concerns, show ideas, you want to partner with New Season, write to us. seasonfmradio@gmail.com. seasonfmradio@gmail.com. If you'd like to ask me a question directly, yeswithyesse@gmail.com. yeswithyesse@gmail.com. We welcome you. We welcome you, and we look forward to partnering with you in 2021. So let us know, and we're right here with you. Until next week, guys, have a great weekend. Happy pre-Friday. Happy Friday. Happy weekend. And I will see you guys next week on Yes with Yesse. Thank you, guys. Good evening. Good evening. Make sure you guys continue to share, all right? Make sure you guys continue to share send us in your show ideas because we really want to hear those. So until next time, guys, see you guys next Thursday, 6:30. Have an awesome, awesome, awesome weekend. See you Sunday at church. See you then.
You found me once I was lost, but now I'm found. You love me, you love me. You broke the chains and held me down. You healed me, you healed me. Once I was blind, but now I see. You freed me, you freed me. What you did at Calvary. Thank you for the cross. You are stronger than sin. You're the cure for my disease. You found me once I was lost, but now I'm found. You love me, you love me. You broke the chain that held me down. You healed me, you healed me. Once I was blind, but now I see. You freed me, you freed me. Look what you did on Calvary. Thank you for the cross. You are stronger than sin. You're the cure for my disease. Oh, I'm more than enough, more than enough for me. Grace is made of blood for me to say, out of the grave, I am free, I am loved, I am healed. I'm stronger than sin. You're the cure for my disease. Oh, I'm more than enough, more than enough for me. Grace is made of blood for me to say, out of the grave, I am free, I Well, I was locked down in the prison of my mind. I was blind to the way that had me caught up in a bind. I was bound by the shackles, tackling my hope. I was living like a fool who'd been given much rope. Steady me,